Welcome to Discover Hope, stories of spoken hope, a place to come when the script of your life gets flipped. My name is Sarah. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to be talking today about a different experience I had fairly soon after Sheldon died. I felt like I was really brave to ask the question that I asked. I hope you stick around. Hi, welcome back, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. My name's Sarah. This is Discover Hope. And here we go on episode 8. Really pumped about this, guys. We're cranking them along and they're coming along so beautifully. And I'll never tire of telling you how thankful I am that you take time to tune in. And when people subscribe, like, share, I shared this in the last episode, it does wild things to the algorithms. And I think I'm going to start asking that more. And I'll just ask, you don't have to, obviously, but I never knew, of course I know people always, when you watch stuff or you listen to stuff, people definitely encourage that. But I had no idea how powerful the algorithm message is. And so essentially, if you like something, it's like tapping an algorithm on the shoulder of like saying, hey, notice this. If you subscribe or download an episode, it's like you're saying to the algorithm, this is important. And what those things do is they bring it up, for like suggested for other people and stuff. And that's the whole mission, the whole purpose, the whole mindset, the whole heartbeat behind Discover Hope podcast is that we would be sending out lifelines of hope. And some of it's with practical tools. Some of it will just be with language or an experience. But that's how we heal, is by we heal when others help, right? And so that's the heart behind it all. So if that works for you, please do it. And thank you. Okay, so for today, what we're going to go over is, I've talked about this in other episodes, and I hope this doesn't sound like I'm being like bougie. I mean it to sound very innocent, but I do feel at times like I was spoiled with just the different people that were in my life, people that I didn't know were in my life, but were there, people whose talents I knew were in my life, but I knew them like as my sister's best friend, and so I always said to myself early on, like, what would I have done if I didn't have Rachel Thomas the day after, the therapist from Scottsdale? What would I do if I didn't have Fran Graham, who I'm going to talk about today? So Fran Graham is a crisis response, like trauma expert. She's worked in multiple facets in her life. When our worlds intersected, so my late husband was a Foursquare pastor. And at the time, Fran was a chaplain, either for the denomination or in our area, because she's many things. But anyway, that kind of gives you a context. And so her skill, because she's also trained in trauma response. So essentially, this is what she does. She goes around the world. So if you work at a hospital, if you're a firefighter, if you're a police officer, if you're they say firefighter? Paramedic. Basically, any helper, if you're a church, if you're a school, she comes in and trains your team how to respond to people who are in trauma, right? Like you have a family whose dad died on a cruise. What do you do? What do you say? And Fran teaches the community how to best support, because we don't know what to say, right? Like even if somebody is in a car accident before first responders get there, like there's some sense of people that we know what to do, right? But what do we do? What do we do when the hurt is in the emotions? Fran is your girl. Fran Graham, look her up. We'll probably have a link in the episode somewhere. So I don't exactly know the day that Fran came over. I do know it was within the first week that Sheldon died, because he passed away while we were on a cruise. And if you've ever gone on a cruise, you do feel a little bit dizzy after, because you're like finding like your land legs, I guess. A bunch of people we're home. The kids and I are home now. A bunch of people were at the house. I actually think my brother's fire department had sent dinner Thank you, Seattle, and Ben, and Charity, my sister-in-law. They had sent dinner. There was a lot of people there, and I started feeling like really dizzy. And I looked at the clock. It was 7 something. I've told you I'm kind of weird with dates and time. And I was looking around the room, kind of like, when you're like checking in, like, is anybody else feeling anything? And then at first I thought, oh, I must be kind of feeling like I'm on the cruise again. Well, what was happening, unbeknownst to me, is it's like the grief was coming in. Like, sometimes I'm noticing sometimes I can be long-winded, so I'm trying to be a little bit more concise. So I ended up going into my room and I think I pulled my mom or something. I'm like, Mom, I think I'm going to freak out. End up going through that night. I could not sleep, you guys. I did not sleep longer than 90 minutes for the first 12 days. I'm not kidding. Fran actually helped with that. But they were starting to get worried about me. I mean, sleeping medicine, like prescription. I mean, I couldn't knock out. And then, when you're so tired and you're going through so much pain, yeah, it was turning into a perfect storm. So somehow that next day, Sydney, my dear sweet friend, and at the time she was my assistant for our real estate company, and she ran the church side of things. Somehow I think somebody said to Sydney, hey, I'm not sure if you know, but we have Fran Graham kind of waiting in the wings should Sarah ever want to reach out. And I think Sydney just said, hey, she lived in Puyallup at the time. She's since moved out of state, but I thought maybe they were flying her and I had no idea. But anyway, thank God Sydney said, you just let us know if you want Fran to come and she'll be here. And there, within an hour, 2 hours, I do not remember, but I do remember I was in such a state, like, like old school Snoopy cartoon where there's a character that's named Linus and he's like a mess. No, Pigpen, the one that just has like, I don't even think he has hair, but it's like the idea is he's just like dirty and chaos. Anyway, I was somewhere a combination between Linus and Pigpen. My hair, I looked like a mad woman. I was a mad woman. I was just lost my husband suddenly. So anyway, and for me to let somebody, like, I don't need you to see me great. Like, I'm going to pull it together. But I'm in a state of mind if I'm just going to welcome somebody into my room looking a fool, So all I remember is they're like, Sarah, Fran's on her way. She comes in. You guys, she's British. So she has the most divine accent. And I think that's God's gift in itself because it just softens this. I don't know. It just was like this beautiful tone. She's like not slightly built, but she's a more like a longer and lean frame, yet powerful. Do not let that deter you. And all I can tell you is she changed my life. She had a thing of hot water, tea. Said hi. I don't even try to do her accent because I think I'll always go Australian. Like she was like, hi, Sarah. My name's Fran. I'm here for 2 minutes or all day. And I was like, hi, Fran. And she sat on the side of my bed. Mind you, I'm just like curled up, just a mess. Like, hi, Fran. And we talked and we cried. And she gave me like, when you just need somebody to tell you like, you're going to make it. And this is awful. And this is hard. Like, and when somebody like, it's like how I talked about Lisa Marsh in the last episode, like when you they lean in and they don't shy away and they can hold space with your tears and they don't need to say anything when it's quiet. Like that is a gift. I still have a hard time being quiet with people, but that's okay. I'm at least aware that it's not a negative. And sometimes just our presence is all someone needs. But you guys, this is really interesting. Before Fran came over, I wrote down a question on this piece of paper. And I can tell you now it was my big scary question. And I didn't know if I was going to have the courage to ask Fran it. And here's the thing, I didn't even know if Fran would have an answer for me. So again, like I hope to kind of be like putting stuff out there. Like, do you realize like I just had this thought like, oh, I have this question. Oh, I'll write it down so I don't forget it. But I knew it was a scary question when I crinkled it up and I slid it under what would have been Sheldon's pillow, on his side of the bed. And as Fran and I were talking, I'm just really open. And kind of the way that I experienced Sheldon's death was I knew there was no getting him back. I knew I wasn't going to give my life to his death. You know what I'm saying? Like I knew I was going to have to find a way to live and to thrive again. You know what I mean? And I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't even know if it was actually possible, but the thought of suffering for the rest of my life felt worse. So now, mind you, I asked the question, and I'm going to be very honest with you of how it went down. And why I thought about, should I share that? Because I have nothing to hide. I more like didn't want to scare you. You know what I mean? Or have somebody be like, well, that's bullcrap. Like that shouldn't happen or whatever. But I was like, no, because if I share things and when we have other people on and people share things that seemed crazy or how would you have even thought to do that? Or we can do that. We could say that. We can feel that. There's something about a collective experience of something and each other going, well, this is what worked for me, or this is what I said, this is what I did. And then suddenly it's like we get those chains off of ourselves because who have you watched to go through what you've been through? TV? A movie? A podcast? You know what I mean? It's like, I want somebody living real life in reality. Like, what did you do? What helped? What hurt? What hindered? What blah, So you guys, this is crazy. And mind you, I had shared a lot about mine and Sheldon's life with Fran. So, but this was, it scared me when it all went down, but it was the greatest thing that happened to me in that moment. Now, mind you, I had shared a little in the last episode, I think, where Sheldon and I we went to a marriage intensive at year 7 because we hit a bump in our marriage. And I'm being funny, but people, we actually, we thought we were going to separate, which we knew would lead to a divorce. And, in the church world, I'm being funny, so please just be silly with me. But people would go like, what happened? Like, what's going on with you guys? Why are you thinking of separating? I'm like, there's no hookers, there's no blow, because oftentimes pastors find themselves in those scandals. I was like, no, we actually are tired and are kind of looking at the long run of this thing going, is this marriage? And maybe people should give you a heads up at the bridal shower. We're all busting on our lingerie and somebody's like, it's hard out there. You know what I mean? It's wild. So anyway, sidebar. Okay, so I'd shared a lot with Fran. We worked really hard on our marriage. Sheldon was a pastor. And listen, I still believe in the local church. I now know if Sheldon and I could have gone back, I still would have married him, even with the outcome. And if we knew what vocational ministry meant for one person, him, we would have just said, hey, that's awesome. That's Sheldon's job, but Sarah doesn't have to play the part that it seemed like at the time. I don't know what it's like now that it required, So I shared that with Fran and that's because I had a real estate company at the time. I still am in real estate, but so anyway, I had shared everything with Fran. Oh my gosh. I'm like, whatever. That was funny. It just, the microphone like popped. I'd shared everything with Fran, and I don't know why, you guys, and maybe it was just like an internal wisdom that realized I had no clue who Fran was, like what her giftings were. But I'm so glad I did. I just like spilled my beans. Isn't that interesting? And in all of that, I knew I had that question underneath, Sheldon's pillow over here. And I said, Fran, before you go, like I have something I wrote down. And I was like, I have a question I want to ask you. And she said, but I'm really scared to ask you the question. And she's like, Sarah, you can ask me anything. And you guys, it was like on a little piece of ripped paper, and it was like all sweaty because I'd been holding it in my little sweaty hand, before she got there. Because when she got there, it's like, that's when I tucked it under the pillow. I was like, I didn't want her to go, what do you have there? And then, so, because when Sheldon died, so we were on a cruise and we were on the last day at sea. We were there with our 4 kids, his mom and dad, his brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and my mom. And when you're on the family, trip, there's not a lot of just, time for each other. So we had planned a layout at the pool at 2:00. Sheldon comes up to me. I'm waiting for him. He's all in his basketball clothes. I talked about this in another episode. I say, hey, what's going on? Why aren't you in your, why aren't you in some, he goes, babe, I made friends on the basketball court. And I was like, Sheldon, you're 40. What? And he said, no, you don't understand. They're black, I'm white, and they picked me to be their 3rd man for the 3-on-3 basketball tournament. And I was like, okay, say no more. And you guys, so he ended up going from there to resting before the tournament started at 3:00. And I had always thought this question that I grabbed from the side of the bed or under Sheldon's pillow, pull it out. And I'm like, Fran, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to read it because I don't even think I could say it. And this is what I said. I always had both hands on the wheel of our life. And the one time I let go, this happened. Do you think if I would have said, no, Sheldon, stay with me, do you think this wouldn't have happened? And she looked at me, you guys, and had a response I'm sure you're not expecting. She had this like roar come up in her. Mind you, I'm laying like this on my bed, and she's right here. It was like a lioness to another lioness. And she says, what does it matter? I need to move the microphone. What does it matter? You were controlling everything from day one. As she not pounced on top of me, but it was this ah, and I'm just looking up at her and she's got her hands here and I'm like, I know. And why I'm telling you this is because something in her saying that, I didn't feel ashamed. I didn't feel like I was a bad person. I didn't feel like I was a bad wife. I don't even know how I had the wherewithal to actually ask that question. But do you know that question and then her answer set me on a completely different trajectory for the rest of my life to this day? And what it was Sheldon and I was 25 when we got married. He was 23. Then we entered the church scene immediately. And it was in a very intense environment, his first job. And we didn't know enough to say no. We didn't know, when you have a heart that just wants to help and you're put in a system, that the system is respect your authority and asking questions was disrespectful and having a different opinion was a lack of integrity. And somehow you're speaking against the Lord's anointed and all you want to do is help people. And that's the system that you're put in and you're young and you don't know that it's healthy to go, I don't like how you're treating me. But because it's in a spiritual organization, you just think, oh, I need to, it must be me. I must be there must be rebellion in my heart. I must be unsubmitted. And I'm not even taunting as I'm saying this. I'm more so sad that the life that was available to Sheldon and I that we just didn't know was available, still within the same system, but man. And so very early on, it was kind of said to me that it was not even my job. I didn't even get paid for it. I had a completely different job, but I was somehow responsible for Sheldon and these outcomes. Now, not when we had our own church and we didn't start a church to be we're going to go do our own thing. We were in the proper channels. But anyway, all of that to say very, very early on, it was communicated to me that what my role was to be in his world. Mind you, I now know through a lot of therapy that if I just would have went home and said to Sheldon, hey, your boss is saying this and I don't want this, Sheldon would have went to the boss and said, hey, maybe this isn't a good fit for us. And we would have bounced. But I didn't know saying no. I didn't know I could say no. I thought I was going to be taking Sheldon's dream from him. And like, I'm not a monster. You know what I mean? It's like, this is what this man really was, I feel, put on this planet to do. He grew up Catholic, and one of his most early memories was him eating Cheerios and looking up at the Statue of Mary going, I feel like there's more to your story. Like, isn't that amazing in this innocent little boy? You know? And so when Fran did that, you know, maybe someone would have taken it like, who does this chick think she is? Like, do you not know what I've been through? But it was like this very healthy, like a necessary, like a, you know, like when somebody breaks their arm and they have to reset it, it's like, this is going to suck, but it's going to make it better in the end. It was like that. And I guess I was so desperate to have a different outcome than what I, you know, like my movie mind was creating for my life and the kids, that I was kind of willing to take the licks where I got them. Cause I'm like, you know, I do say, like, being funny, like, well, there's not a lot of people to blame for your problems when your dad and your husband die 5 months apart from each other. So yeah, guys, like that was one of the greatest gifts that ever happened. That experience reminded me of, so I'd have these moments that would happen, right? Like I'd have an experience after Sheldon died, then I'd go back to my life, an experience I had when he was alive, and go, oh, that's what was going on. So we found out, so Sheldon was scheduled to have a vasectomy. I wasn't feeling well. I say, if you're going to have so we have 3 kids at this point. He's going to have a vasectomy. I say, oh, I'm not feeling very good. I should probably go to the doctor because I did not feel good. Before you go have, vasectomy, so I can, take care of you and give you frozen peas. And so I go to the doctor. They're like, oh, there's no way you're pregnant. I'm like, oh, nope. They're like, well, just to be sure. And I'm like, okay, like, suit yourself. Sure enough, I was pregnant with Cash. I cannot imagine him not. I can't even imagine. So because he's 4 years younger than Ruby Love, the boys are 20 months. Ruby Love and Rocco are 2 years, Cash 4 years younger. And for whatever reason, my brain locked on to us not knowing the gender. So if he would end up being a boy or a girl. And then also, do not ask me why. My brain locked on, and when it locks, good luck getting anything out of there. It locked on to a natural birth. I said a natural birth. And any of you that have, I don't know, I don't even want to talk about it. So I'm in the hospital. It's June 24th, I think, when I went into labor, 2011 with Cash. And at this point, when you've had 4 kids, you're like to your neighbor at the mailbox, would you want to be in the delivery room? Like, how about you? Like FedEx? It just seems like you just start like having like people in your birthing room, whatever. So I had, friends and family in the birthing room, and I was not prepared for the amount of pain that was happens with a natural childbirth. And I'll never have to, people say, would you ever do it again? I'm like, I don't have to know. We're done. And at that time, Ricky Lake had a documentary out called The Business of Being Born. And it was really kind of like reviving natural births, and that our bodies were made to do this. And she always talked about these joy endorphins. Like after the baby's born, like you get this flood of endorphins. And I was like, that actually sounds amazing. So there I am in the hospital, and it's like labor's hitting, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So at this certain point, it's like, I believe it or not, could you imagine the amount of pain I would have to be in to not be able to speak a word? Let me tell you. So I end up there, people are still in the room. Sheldon's right here. I'm leaning on I'm like leaned over like the bed or whatever. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't even realize it, but I guess I was going like this, like shaking my head back and forth. And this sweet little nurse comes over, and she comes like right here, probably because she realized, I don't know, like I couldn't backhand her, like clock her because of what she said. But she goes, Sarah, I'm going to say this to you. And if you can, if you're able to, stop nodding no. And even if you just stop nodding no and just even one, if you could stop, that'd be great. But if possible, if you could even begin nodding. So I'm going to do it like this. So I was going like this. And then she said, even if you could stop, and that's why I couldn't hit her, because I was like this. Smart girl. So I'm like this. And then she's like, it's unbelievable what can happen, even if you're not saying anything, but just the position of your head saying yes or no. And you guys, I mean, of course, I cussed her out inside of my head. I just was in so much pain, I couldn't say anything or strike her. And if you know that pain, I'm not violent. I'm just was hurting. So I stop. And then I look at Sheldon and I'm like, I'm gonna freak out. Like it was as if me just even nodding. I didn't even know I was moving my head. So it was like that nod was keeping like momentum happening, because as soon as she said that, and it was almost like, I was like, oh, I'm doing that. No sooner did that happen, did this chaos between my body and my brain stop. And I looked at Sheldon and I'm like, I can't get my body and brain to connect. I can't get my body. It was like there was a complete disconnect within my body and my brain. And he was a chill guy, but Sheldon could break it down. And he looks up at everybody and goes, everyone, get out of the room. Get out of the room. My mom to this day will be like it scared all of them so bad. Like all my girlfriends and my sisters and sister-in-law, they just were like, and like scurried out of the room, like scared little bugs, And before I knew it, Sheldon and this nurse grabbed me and like literally threw me onto the bed. And the next thing I know, you guys, I am letting out these 3 primal roars. Like, you've lost your ever-loving mind when you're screaming like that in a hospital. Like, you hear stories about this, like, yeah, there was this lady freaking out. Like, you're made fun of, and no shame. And it was by doing that I was able to give birth to Cash, because he was 10 pounds. Whoo! So I give birth. I'm in shock. Sheldon's looking up at me and he's like, his just big green eyes crying. He's like, it's a boy, babe. It's a boy. It's Cash, babe. It's Cash. And at this point, I'm literally picturing the documentary and I'm like, and I say, when did the joy endorphins come? When did the joy endorphins come? Because, what was presented on TV was like, yeah, and then you're going to have a baby and then you're going to be like in euphoria. I was not. It took a while. But I will tell you this, that do you know that after I gave birth to Cash and once everything, a few hours later, once I settled down and all of that, I did not put that baby down for 36 hours. I wouldn't. Even one of my good friends, Carrie, I know she listens to this, she was going to come to the hospital and do newborn pictures. And I was like, no, thank you. That's my only regret, because my mom and dad, of course, brought the kids. We had a couple friends come, but that was it. Like, I didn't want, but my point being, like, there is a wiring in us and we are made to go through really hard stuff. So again, I'm going to draw out one more thing that I learned from this whole experience. I feel like Fran started it. And then when I did different type of therapy, this is where I learned this actual skill that I'd love to share with you today. And then we'll wrap up. Okay, guys, welcome back. I'm at the whiteboard. So like I had been talking about in this episode, Fran Graham, when she came, I said, I always had both hands on the wheel of our life. The one time I let go, meaning the one time I say to Sheldon, yeah, not like I had him on a leash, but you know what I mean? Like, we had a plan to hang out by the pool for just an hour. And instead of me saying like, no, stay with me, he went to play basketball, and it was from the playing basketball that his heart attack happened. And so I say to Fran, if I would have said, I had both hands on the wheel of our life, the one time I let go, this happens. Do you think if I would have said no, that this still would have happened? And she says, what does it matter? You've been controlling everything since day one. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? And then can you even believe that somewhere in me was like, you're not, you're not wrong. Like, and how I say laughter is the sound of healing. Like, but what was my other option? I know, here's the great thing. We don't even need to talk about it because my option, the choice I made was, you're not wrong. And I want to do something about it. So so it's almost like how it seemed to work with me. It's like like something would break open, and then somewhere along the way, there was some element of support that would come along. And now listen, I had to go after it, but I YouTubed, I Googled. Now there's ChatGPT. Now there's so many podcasters, so many like just in Reels alone, you can find a lot of stuff. There's fantastic therapists, you guys. There's recovery meetings, there's churches, there's grief groups, there's so much support. Like the reason to not heal would be because of you. You know what I mean? Like to just choose to stay in it. Like the choice is totally yours. And so through this process, I ended up learning about a style of therapy that's called DBT, dialectic behavior therapy. It was created by a woman named Marsha Linehan. I don't know her exact accreditation. I don't know if she's a psychiatrist or psychologist. I know she's very like studied and very regarded. And she actually created this style of therapy for her own life because she dealt with such debilitating depression. But it's used in all sorts of fashions. And in another episode, I talked about where I went to a counselor who specialized in DBT, dialectic behavior therapy. And then it came with like a class and a lot of homework. But again, I was like, well, what's my, like, what was my other option? I wanted to grow. I wanted to heal. I wanted to get better. And I wanted to give the best shot to my kids. So what I want to teach you today, and then we'll go, is it's called radical acceptance. And it's also the process of finding your wise mind. So radical acceptance is the idea of what it sounds like, radically accepting what is. And Marsha Linehan says, pain is inevitable. I wrote it down. Okay. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And that's true because I'm not ever going to suggest that you just suck it up, buttercup. Oh, I'm sorry that this happened or that happened. No, I'm going to sit with you in that for a little bit. And I'm going to acknowledge as much as I can about that. But for your suffering, that's on you. And when I say on you, I hope that doesn't sound like I'm putting you down, but it's like, that's yours to choose what you want to do with. How about that? That feels better coming out of me. So Marsha Linehan, it's this, I'll draw it. So you've got a circle here, and then, I don't know how this is going. Okay. Then a circle here. Okay. I'm going to go back over here. And I'm not going to turn to the camera like that ever again. Whoa. Okay. Can you see? Yeah, this seems better. Okay. So you've got your rational mind. Rational mind, and you've got your emotional mind. Now, you've got your rational mind, you've got your emotional mind. And your rational mind, when you're going through stuff, you've met these people, maybe you are this person, it happened, we need to do, now we go into the technical side. We need to file this paperwork, we need to create a parenting plan, we need to do everything the doctor says, this is what it is, this is how it's gonna be, it's cool, it's emotionless, it's rational. Then you've got your emotional mind. Oh my gosh, you're freaking out, everything's about you, it's the worst thing that ever happened. You're never going to get through this. And listen, those feelings are real. But to stay in this state of mind is going to ruin you and everyone around you, especially if you're responsible for little ones. So the idea is through the practice of radical acceptance, we find our wise, I'm doing like this because I want to make sure you hear me, our wise mind. and this is where we want to live. This is what we want to get to. It doesn't mean like we're all of this is a combination to create this, right? Because we need to be rational. We also need to have our emotions, but then we get to choose this. And Marsha Linehan says, like, all people have wisdom within them, but it takes time, it takes work to get there. Like, we don't just like, oh, now I'm going to be my wise mind. No, it's by doing the work, it's by showing up, it's by realizing like, oh, I'm way over here. Or, oh, wow, I'm not feeling anything. You know what I mean? Because anything out of balance is going to be to the detriment. This is where we end up in crazy addiction. This is where we end up in multiple relationships that are destructive. This is where we end up in all sorts of chaos. Or this is where we just end up living and we're walking around like a living dead. And you can't want that for you. I know you don't. But if you don't know what to do, like, Google this, YouTube it. That's what I did in the very beginning. I just YouTube Marsha Linehan. I listened to everything. She talks about like the idea of radical acceptance is she spent some time at a monastery, like with monks. And she said that in learning how to practice radical acceptance, everyone was given jobs. And then when the bell went off or whatever, you would just stop your job in the middle of what you were doing. Can you imagine? And she remembers her job was sweeping. And she tells the story where she was sweeping and then the bell went off, but she wasn't finished sweeping. But the practice of radical acceptance is realizing that she's never going to be done sweeping. There's always going to be floors to sweep, right? So like, we're never going to be fully evolved. We're never going to fully heal, but we can do something. And tiny things linked together create really, really, really strong bonds of healing and processes and directions and a whole new life. And wise mind is where I found the courage to say to people, I'm going to be happy again. Do you know how many times I've said, I wish Sheldon could know me like I am now, but I wouldn't be me if I didn't go through what I went through. And do you know how crazy I feel and how cold I feel sometimes saying like that I'm the best version of myself? And I'm not the best version of myself because Sheldon died and then I became the best version of myself. I'm the best version of myself because for whatever reason, something got planted in my heart when he died that night at sea, and I told my kids that he didn't make it. And I locked into, I don't know what this is going to look like, but I know that I will give my heart and soul to protect my kids and to give us all a shot at a whole second life. Nothing will ever replace Sheldon. No one will ever replace Sheldon. I've remarried. I'm happy. He's amazing to the kids. The kids love him. And even Tim, like he says, like, I say to Tim all the time, I'm like, I could never be you. I'm too jealous. What? You know what I mean? Like the first time Tim came over, I'll wrap up with this. The first time Tim came over to take me on like our first like real dates, he brought, flowers and all that stuff. And he showed up and the first thing he said to the kids is, guys, I'm so sorry I'm here. Because the only reason I'm here is because your dad's not. And I knew your dad and I loved your dad and I'm going to honor your dad. And that takes quite a man to be able to say something like that and then join the mix and walk it out, you know? And we have our growth there. We'll share all of that later, but yeah, you deserve a new experience. You deserve healing and you can do it. It's not going to feel good, but I can promise you this, it'll be worth it. And you know what? There's a sense of pride you get with it too, to know that no one made me do this. I did that. Like, that's really brave. No one's going to make you do the work, but everyone, mostly you, is going to know that you did. You deserve it. The world deserves it. And it can be great again. It can be beautiful again. I promise. Okay, guys, thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time. All right, before we go, If Discover Hope has helped you or encouraged you at all, I wanted to invite you to be a part of the bigger picture. One way you could do that would be by subscribing, liking, or sharing any of the episodes with someone you think might benefit from it, or even on your social media platforms. Another way you could do this if you'd like to make a donation or even sponsor an episode on behalf of someone you love, you can do that by clicking the link to discoverhope.org below, or you can head on over to our website where you can make donations there or also sponsor at discoverhope.org. You guys, thank you for being a part of this. It's a dream come true. And I truly believe that we are giving grief a language and making room for an abundant amount of hope. Thanks so much.